Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Here I have in front of me two recorders. What I'm going to do today is to show you that a lot of instruments can be played very similar to each other, and they're constructed similar to each other. They might be in different keys, but here are two recorders. And as I showed you how instruments sometimes get pulled apart in the previous session that we had, this is a recorder, and it usually the good recorders have three parts to them. This here is the head joint, ending at about right here. This is the body of the instrument, and it ends about right here, and this is the foot joint. Now, in most recorders, at least the best, those come apart. So I usually use this one to show it because I think it's easy to see with the blue bands and so forth. But I will take this head joint off. Okay? This is the head joint. Now I'll take the foot joint off right here, and we are left with the body. And the blue bands show us exactly where the head joint ends and where the foot joint ends or begins. So let me put this back together. And here again, when you're putting them together, don't jam them together. Make a little gentle twisting. Now, you might want to. Most recorders do not have cork on them, so you won't have to bother with cork grease in order to take care of them. If they're plastic or if they're metal, you can rub over them with alcohol to disinfect them, and you won't need to use any cork grease because usually they slide in very easily. Now, what you want to do, like you do for some of the instruments, like the flute I mentioned on the last segment, if you take the flute, you pull it apart, and then you need to take some alcohol or something and rub around it so that you don't have a residue and it's easier to put together. You may well need to do the same thing for the recorders, even though most of them that I have are plastic. You still want to take alcohol and rub around them every so often, and I'm not saying all the time. I'm not saying every time you play. Now, I used to teach in a school, and I disinfected, or I showed the students how to do it. We disinfected the instruments twice. I would disinfect them before they came in. When they left, we would also disinfect them. And then I'd teach the next class how to disinfect them. This is just for sanitation purposes, so they wouldn't pick up each other's colds and so forth. So what I want to get to is these instruments, they finger very similarly, they play very similarly, and they sound very similar to each other. Even the keys sound pretty much alike. I'm going to take the recorder and I'm going to play from B to D. B, A, G, F, E, D. It was one of the first things that I taught, and I need to review it every so often. B-A-G, bag, F-E-D, left hand on top, right hand on the bottom. And if I want to do the C, just like the saxophone, now, this is a C melody recorder, and I have several of them. I have quite a few of them. So next, let's take the flutophone. Sound familiar? It's just exactly like the recorder. It has a little different quality of tone, but the fingering pattern is exactly the same, and it sounds exactly the same. I do like these little flutophones, and they do have a whole tone hole in the back, but they can't get octaves. You can only get one octave with them. But they're a nice little instrument, and they have a nice little tone. So let me take some instruments now. Or let me try a couple more recorders, and then I'm going to go into the D instruments. All right, here is a an instrument. This is a Israeli instrument. It's a gill. They make a lot of instruments from Israel. And this doesn't come apart in 3 parts. It comes apart in 2. You can take the head joint off, but you can't, so there's no separation with the foot joint. It's just one instrument. And that's the Israeli one, and this little guy is an LMI student model. They may change a little bit in the quality of tone, but basically the pitch is still the same. Now let me see. So that's a little LMI. Let's take some others. I'm going to take, this is a sweet tone. It was made in Great Britain. I have 2 of them. One is red and one is green. And they're called a conical instrument because they kind of come to a point. Where regular penny whistles, they're cylindrical, they're the same width all the way down. These are conical, they come to a point. And this is not in the key of C. All those instruments that I played for you, the flutophone and the various recorders, were all in the key of C. This is in the key of D. Almost the same, isn't it? And the fingering pattern, exactly the same. Let me take the other sweet tone. They've got a little symbol, it looks like a little clown on it. You know, it's just part of what they do. It's their insignia, I guess. That's the sweet tone. Okay, then let me take, I want to take, this is a Clark's instrument, also made in Great Britain. The difference, it is conical, it comes to a point. There's a little, we know about the block. I've talked to you before about the blocks in the mouthpiece, but this is this wooden plug right in it. So it plays softer because it's a wooden plugged Fipple mouthpiece, if I can phrase it that way. And the wood is right here. More wood than you would see on most instruments as far as the mouthpieces are concerned, the Fipple mouthpieces. Same notes, however, pretty much the same pitch. And I'm going to play, here's also a Clark's. This Clark's may be a little bit higher pitched, I'm not sure. I changed the fingerings a little to get it to be in pitch. But it is also a Clark's. It's a conical, and it has the wooden piece in the mouthpiece. Same fingering patterns, basically same tone, same pitch. Now, I'm going to play the, this is a penny whistle, and it's called a Generation Flute. Also made in Great Britain. A lot of my little instruments are made in Great Britain. Here we are. It's in the key of D. Basically the same notes. Why do they play the same? They're in different keys. If you look at a keyboard, which I just happen to have a picture of one with me, you will notice that this is the C. Maybe I should use, I've got one in here, I think to the beginning. Okay, let's use, it'll be easier, I guess, to pick it up on that than it is for my holding it. And then, of course, I can point to things too. So we'll look at this one. And we're not going to pay too much attention to these things here. It's kind of like a multi-purpose chart that I have with me that shows a little bit of everything. When I need it, there it is. So here it is, very good. This is a C on the keyboard. This is a D. When I play the C on the recorder, this is what I'm playing, unless I'm playing on a higher or a lower register, but it's still a C. When I played the D instruments, which would have been the Clarks, the sweet tones, and the other instruments, let's see, Clarks and sweet tones, and that would be basically it. And some of these other lighter instruments, they play in the key of D. Now the key of D is right here. D is a higher note than C. But when I play some of those instruments, the scales sound like they're in the key of C. I played the key of C scale on the recorder, and it sounded like it does. But when I used some of the other instruments, it also sounded like it was in the key of C. How come? I'm going to compare them. Okay, we'll do the C. Just the 6 notes, B, A, G, F, E, D. See if you can keep that sound in your head. And then I'll do, this is in the key of D. It sounds basically the same. Why would it sound basically the same when the D is higher than the C and it's 1 key up? Well, the reason, and my theory is, that most of these D instruments do not have a tone hole in the back. No tone hole in the back. But if you take the recorder and if you take the flutophone, they have all of the tone holes in the back. The flutophone has one as well. And it doesn't help with the octaves with the flutophone because the flutophone doesn't play octaves, but it certainly helps with the octaves with the regular recorder. The recorder, as simple as it is really in a sense of an advanced type of instrument. Not because it doesn't have a whole lot of keys like the saxes and the clarinets and the flutes, but what you can play with it, you can play with it almost anything. You know, if you know how to play and you know how to kind of coax it and tweak it a little, you can play some very, very difficult, very demanding music, and it sounds good. I play the Alleluia Chorus from Handel's Messiah every year, and I do it on a recorder. And my twin sister plays an organ. It's a really great pipe organ. It's not one of these little Mickey Mouse outfits, you know, that you just put an organ setting and it plays. It's got like 900 pipes, and they all work. It's been refinished and refurbished, and it plays perfect pitch. This recorder plays perfect pitch to that organ. And I can play various, very technical music. I do the Alleluia Chorus every year. She and I do it together. And I play other types of music. I play classical music. And I arrange classical music for a recorder. Because as little as it is, it can do marvelous, marvelous things. But you got to know how to do it. But that's true of any instrument. Oftentimes I'm asked, what is the simplest instrument to play? They're usually not thinking about a recorder because what they're thinking about a recorder is that it's some kind of toy. You give it to kids. But a recorder is not a toy. It's a major instrument, and they have orchestras in Europe all over the place that play classical music and difficult music, and they all have recorders. You could have a 40-person orchestra, and they're all playing recorders, and it's absolutely beautiful. But of course there are things it cannot do. There are no side keys. When you do your sharps and your flats, you have to half hole them. So if I'm going to be doing a G sharp, and I'm going to play a G, the G sharp, and all I did to get that was I moved my finger, this one here, and I moved it a little bit to open a little bit of space so that that hole is not completely covered. Normally you have to completely cover every hole, but with a recorder, if you want a sharp, you take and just lift that finger, just move it. You don't take it off, you just move it and add a little bit of space, and you're going to get a half step up. That's how you're going to play your sharps. And for an F sharp, you would play it this way. F is this. And, oops, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. And then if I want the sharp, I put this up and I put this down. For octaves, a lot of times what you do, and I can't really show you when I'm playing it, but you take and pull your thumb down so there's a little bit of space on the top that shows it's not completely covered. And what you do with that is you get your octaves. Now you can't see what I'm doing with my thumb. I'm not taking my thumb off. I'm just moving it a little, and that puts a little bit of that hole not covered. It leaves a little bit of that hole not covered, and that bounces the tone up an octave. Now it doesn't work for every single note, but it works for a lot of the notes. If I want a D, this is the way the flute plays the D. It's like a low D, and you lift that top finger. For the recorder, it's just this note. So C, B, A, G, G, A, B, C. And then to get the D, remove the thumb, and you still have that first finger down, but remove the thumb. That tone hole is not covered at all. It gives you a D. And then if you want an E above that, you play it like a low E and half hole. Just draw that down and it'll bounce that E up. This is a little out of pitch, but that's the way it's done. It's not much difference. Now, you can use alternate fingerings for these instruments if it works for them. And there's a great range of recorders. Some can do it and some can't. So just to show you, what you are doing is you're transferring. If you're playing an instrument like the recorder and you want to play the penny whistles, you want to play the other zaffoons, which I didn't bring in with me today, and other types of instruments, you basically are transferring everything that you've learned on one instrument and handed it down to the next instrument so you can play it. So the way I started playing the penny whistle is I was in an orchestra and I was playing flute, and there was a friend of mine playing flute beside me, and she brought in a penny whistle. She says, "Pat, you got to get one of these. It's really fun to play. And all you do is blow and finger." And it was so much fun, I bought several of them in different keys, because you can get them in different keys. So I wanted to show you, basically, in terms of taking care of instruments, I'm going to go into that more thoroughly next time, how to do it. I've already shown you how to put instruments together and how important it is to put them in right. And then I'm going to continue with how you take care of them, how you clean them, and then we're going into the practice time. How do you make best use of your practice time? So I'll close it here. Please join me next time.